is really just exemplified in HubSpot. I'm not necessarily saying this is the only way you can do it. There's lots of other platforms that you can do it on. MailChimp does it. If you've got any of the email client services like Constant Contact, you can use the same method on those platforms. We're going to go over audience, message, channel, and asset, plus the follow-up end of it related to the ZPS method. And then I've got a guide to building an email campaign so that you can capitalize on all the elements. I am going to talk a little bit about the difference between messaging on platforms. So you don't want to format a LinkedIn message the same way you would an email. All of that stuff is going to be within my meeting today, and I'm going to give you guys the link to the guide. All right, so today we're going to talk about a method to start to get your marketing campaigns put together. All right, there's a concept within marketing, and I'm going to show you guys a couple slides here that I usually work off of. The reason why I use marketing as air quotations there is because everybody says that they market, or everybody says they do marketing. And then when you ask them what their marketing is, they're like, well, my business cards are great and I have a logo. It's not really the act of marketing. Like if we went to the Webster's Dictionary version of it, it's not going to be that. But even the Webster's Dictionary version of it, or Wikipedia, isn't going to define it for you. The concept of marketing is when you start to think about it within a programmatic approach, is looking at the channels that you're operating on and understanding that your messages, your content pieces can be relayed on many different platforms. I don't usually start in the middle when I talk about AMCAF, but that's what I'm going to do today because there's some confusion around this generally around what channel means, okay? So with this slide up, what we try to do is define things for your business. When I start to have discussions with you about, what it is that you're doing to project your messaging and reach your audience, you start to come up with, well, I'm on LinkedIn and I post. Is that marketing? And it is, absolutely. But the concept of marketing on LinkedIn is different than the concept of email marketing based on the format that you're going to use. You could use exactly the same audience. Okay, let's pretend like there were only the people that you know on LinkedIn and you wanted to put a post out to them, and you were also going to send that same group an email. You would format it differently. LinkedIn only allows one hyperlink on it. Well, I shouldn't say that. It allows multiple hyperlinks, but it projects the first hyperlink that you put on the post into like a thumbnail, right? So if I pull this back up and I go to LinkedIn, I'll grab this hyperlink and I'll show you what I mean. When I go and I create this post and I drop this hyperlink, in a second it's going to come up with a little preview of it, right? Type my stuff, put enter, and then hit hyperlink, and then the preview to that link is going to come up down here. If I want to add another hyperlink in here, oh, it's not letting me take this out.
It could be part of the update.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's not letting me take the link out of it. Huh. So that preview is going to pop up, and then when I come down here and I grab another hyperlink, let's say it's Amazon, copy. It's not going to do a preview for this link. It's going to do it for the first one. So when you embed a hyperlink on LinkedIn, the click-through on this is going to be very difficult. It's going to be very confusing. The idea is that you have a single call to action associated with your post. That's the whole idea behind it, right? So in the chat, I'm going to drop this AMCAF infographic. Okay, if you guys don't have this, what we talk about is AMCAF, audience, message, channel, asset, and follow-up, right? Those are the 5 elements that you need to include in any piece of content that you're gonna put out, okay? Considering the channel you're on is very important. Facebook and LinkedIn are very similar with their channel rules. A hyperlink is going to have a preview. When you add multiple hyperlinks, you're creating confusion for the people that are clicking on that post. Remember, this is a quick hit situation on LinkedIn, on any social media, honestly. A quick hit. Make sure that you're leading them to a call to action where you want something else done. If I was putting this post up, fundamentally what I want to do is get subscribers on my YouTube channel. I want analytics coming over to LinkedIn or coming over to YouTube. Now, I'm breaking a rule associated with LinkedIn when I do this. I'm taking you off platform when you click on it. I don't care about that rule in this instance. I don't care about the number of impressions being high related to my post. What I care about is dragging people over to my YouTube channel so I can get views on that. I want to see the analytics. I want to see the source of the person that came to YouTube be LinkedIn. If you don't know what that means, we should talk about that later. Fundamentally, you can see the source of the person that came to your YouTube video through your YouTube analytics. Overall, on the AMCAF concept, we're looking at who is your audience and what is the message you're going to tailor to. If you have an audience of H7 people, your connections or your transactors, the people, within H7 that you really want to focus on. And remember this, there's only 2 audiences in H7. There's only 2 audiences in any networking group. Strategic partners and those you can transact with. They're 2 different things, but nobody falls in a different bucket. If somebody's outside of one of those 2 things, you should not be meeting with them. Just so we're clear. The strategic partner perspective is what Clayton calls champions. The idea here is that you're going to formulate messaging for people that have commonality with you. That way it's not actually spam. Hey, this is Mark Perrone. Well, I wouldn't say that. I would say, hey-o, first name. Wanted to reach out because I'm connected with you in LinkedIn and it's been a while since we've chit-chatted. In my system, I actually have a conversation thread for every contact that I've met with. So I know if I've had meetings with somebody recently, that message wouldn't go, right? It'd be weird. You'd be like, we just talked yesterday. What do you mean? You're spamming me, aren't you? So crafting that message for your audience is very, very important. The more similarity you have, the better off you are. I'll give you a for instance. Diana, we did a campaign related to email. We went and we pulled down all your first level connections, got their email addresses, and then you reached out to them. In that messaging set, we said, hey, we're first level connections on LinkedIn. I'm interested to know how LinkedIn Premium is working for you because I filtered for Premium only. Can you give me some insight? What was your response rate on that?
Oh, it was high. It was very high because people didn't feel like I was trying to sell them something because I don't do LinkedIn.
And you had commonality to say you were first level connected and you have premium. That feels very tailored. That feels like, oh shit, she really does need some help. She was asking for help. The response rate on that, when I say response rate, I don't mean open rate. They're 2 different things. All right, so we're clear. The open rate
these are people that replied to the email, and I don't know what the percentage was, but it was high.
Right. So how many connections do you have, Diana?
I don't know because I'm getting a ton of new ones with all the new content I've been doing.
Oh, 6,000, something like that.
Probably.
5,000. Okay. So 5,000 emails went out. An open rate of say 40% happened. I think that's about what it is. I don't remember exactly, but that's pretty good. Just so we're clear on somebody that she's never emailed before, that's really good. And then the reply rate had her inundated with responses, probably still responding to some of them. And that was 3 months ago. So this is carried on based on the fact that we looked at 2 things, an audience and a message. We were very, very careful to craft it in a way that made it sound like the email was for them. Now, had she done that on LinkedIn, we would not have gotten the same amount of responses. She probably would have had 1,200 impressions, a few comments down below, maybe 10, and then it would have been done. That channel dictates how that message resonates with someone. Okay, so we just did channel, message, and then the audience when I said someone, right? Within this acronym, you guys understand what message is, or I'm sorry, you guys understand what audience is, you guys understand what message is on the surface, you understand what the channel is. An asset is the thing that's carried. Okay, sometimes it's a video. Sometimes it's a PDF with an infographic on it. Sometimes it's a form. Sometimes it's an event invite. That asset is meant to create that call to action. The message has got to be good, but it's a sequence of events. If you open an email, it's because the subject line was good from somebody that you know. If you read the email and you click on something, it's because the message inside the email led you to that call to action. When you clicked on that call to action, the next piece of information is the asset that you get. That asset needs to be meaningful to your audience. It needs to act as the converter to the thing that you really want them to do. Schedule a call with me. Hold this infographic. Sometimes I put out stuff like that 52-page algorithm report that I shared with everyone. Sometimes it's just informational. Like I gave this to everyone else, so I figured I'd give it to you too because you mean something to me. That's a pretty solid message, right? It's, you know, it's not too deep. It's not too shallow. It's kind of in there. Like, oh yeah, hey Mark, thanks. That's awesome. I appreciate that. That was a marketing touch. If you really break it down and cheapen it totally, it was a marketing touch. I had a valuable asset that I shared. Diana just did the same thing with the infographic that she found for LinkedIn tips, hints, and tricks on LinkedIn, or on LinkedIn, she did this about LinkedIn. A lot of people engaged with that because they were like, wow, this is information I didn't have before. You're valuable to me. They saw her name. They moved forward with a communication, which was either a like or a comment. Sometimes it's a share. It just depends upon the situation. The idea behind all of this is to set up your follow-up. Okay? If you're in sales, you should know that follow-up is really the most important thing you can do. We all meet people all day long, but if you don't follow up, if you don't take the ownness and say, hey, wanted to see if you completed that thing that we talked about, or hey, wanted to get some feedback on that message I sent you, pressuring them with some of that awkward silence is important. You can weaponize that. You were supposed to have done something. Tell me you didn't want to do it. Ignore me, but I'm going to follow up with you again. This cadence helps with everything you do. So what I've done is kind of put this into a working format. Okay. So if you started like surface level marketing and put down what you want to do in a month, right? Set up 12 of these. Start to think about this in a way that you can execute it. In August, we're going to hit an audience with a message. It's going to be on 2 channels. This is the asset that we're going to go with, and then I'm going to follow up with an email. It categorizes your effort. It helps you think with containers on how you're going to approach things. This is used from the solopreneur level all the way up to Nike, all the way up to Siemens, all the way up to $100 million companies, all the way down to $50,000 a year companies. It works universally, okay? When you start categorizing what it is that you have, I've got a list, but I don't have a message to send to them. Let's look at what the commonality is between the people that's on that list, how I can speak to them personally, get that message written, figure out, it's gonna be on email. Also put a little asset in there. It might just be a link for your meeting. That's all you really need. A virtual meeting link is good enough for an asset. If you've built in enough value into that message, if you've put a little bit into that relationship, you're gonna get a good response rate to schedule more meetings for yourself. I'm not talking about selling your services here. I'm just talking about setting up a one-to-one, just talking about getting your name in front of someone, okay? Does that make sense to everybody? Are you guys all starting to understand the methodology behind it? Does anybody have any questions about any of it?
I have a question.
Sure.
I'm writing it down. Do I have to have Sales Navigator to grab the emails of my first level connections? And if so, or if not, how do I send all of them an email at the same time?
Well, you don't believe in CRMs, so that's a hard discussion to have a conversation with you about. And mind you, your Calendly schedule meeting link is the beginning of a CRM. You should definitely have one, just so you know.
You should. I second that.
You don't have to have Sales Navigator to pull the email addresses, but I don't know today if you can go get the export like you used to be able to. I'll check to see if I can do that real quick. So
you mean a CSV file?
yeah, so you can go to connections and then you go to manage and import. I think that's, and then export contacts. And what this is going to do is give you your connections. And I don't know what comes on the CSV export now because I don't do this anymore. I don't mess with, I have a magic way that I do this. And this is what I did for Diana too. I did a marketing touch along with get their email address. I believe that if you request this archive here, you can get all your connections, at least by name. And then I don't know for sure if the email address is going to be on there or not anymore. I think it is, but I don't know because it's been a while since I've done this. It takes a minute for this request to come back. I'll request and see if by the end of the time that we have here, if it comes back. I'll go back through that, Oz, because I did it real quick, just so you know.
Well, I use Get Response for my email list. Would you consider that a CRM or no?
Yeah, I mean, that's how you would send out emails to all those people for sure. It's not a CRM, it's a marketing automation platform. They're a little different, but you can use that same piece of software to do this. You just would load in, all their first names and last names, and then you would load in their emails, and you would tokenize the email to say hello first name.
Oh no, I know how to do all that. But
okay, cool. Well, that's the answer.
It's the CSV file that I can import all at the same time.
Yeah. So if this comes in any kind of relative decent amount of time, sometimes it comes, sometimes it doesn't. In like 3 minutes, sometimes it takes a day for them to give you that information. So I'll show you how to do it again. I went to my connections, I clicked my network, clicked on connections. I did manage synced and imported contacts. And then I went down here to export contacts. And then that's where you get to choose what it is you want to export about your first level contacts. Good?
Yep.
Cool. All right, so next thing is building an email. I went and found
I have a question.
Sure.
If you have link match, are you already getting those personal emails if they're in LinkedIn?
So if you're first level connected and they've allowed you to see email address after connection, link match will pull the email address for you.
But you have to do it one at a time.
You have to do it one at a
go
time.
into each one person and add to HubSpot, add to HubSpot, add to HubSpot, add to HubSpot, and that can be time consuming.
Okay, absolutely. Okay, great, thanks.
Yep. So I put this document in here because there's some pretty good tips, hints, and tricks here. The ultimate guide to email design and 13 best practices. Even if you're not on HubSpot, you can use this model, okay? All these tips, hints, and tricks are designed to get you thinking about, how you design an email. Now, I want to be clear on this. I differ on many things from mainstream everything, all right? I do not believe that email design should be complicated. I do not believe that you should have pictures embedded in it and boxes behind it. Any email that you get that has a template behind it is a business email. That's a business sending a consumer something about their product or service. If you're addressing an audience like me or anybody else in this room and you waste the time building that template, I will never open that email. I promise you. I don't know who else will. I'm not speaking for everybody else, but it's instantly, this is a sales email. If your prerogative is to be hyper aggressive and you're playing the volume game, you've got enough targets in your database that you can send hundreds of thousands of people emails, the template methodology will work because you're going to get a percent back from the larger percentage. If you've got hundreds of contacts, I recommend that you use a 3-sentence format. Hello, 3 sentences with a CTA in it. Keep it simple, all right? If you give them a Dead Sea Scroll, they will not get to the CTA. Paragraph after paragraph after paragraph is not in our concept of viewing emails. When I look at people who viewed emails, most of the time it's going to be 2 to 8 seconds that they look at an email. Very rarely do I see a disproportionate amount of people that look at an email for more than 8 seconds. There are some people that do it. I'm not going to say it's zero, but that plus 8 seconds, if you think about how far you can read in 8 seconds, it's not that far. So wasting your time building out a huge complicated email is silly. You got to figure out a concise message to send in 3 sentences each. If it's 4, fine. If it's 5, great. If it's 6, you're struggling. Don't do that. Okay. So overall, what I wanted to do today, we've got about 2 minutes left, is kind of give you guys a template to build marketing, to get a definition of what marketing is. I talk a lot about omni-channel marketing. That means taking a message with an asset and putting it on multiple channels. Okay. We have the ability in H7 to hit 3 channels just because you're a part of H7. Actually 4 if you count the LinkedIn group that doesn't get any traction for H7. You've got the LinkedIn group for H7. You can put a post up there. You're probably a part of it, to be honest with you, you don't even know it. Number 2, you have your LinkedIn and those connections on your open posts, just this on the regular feed, right? You can get emails from people in H7 and communicate with them. And the last thing is the Facebook group. So if you take one message to similar audiences with the same asset, you can go on 4 different channels and it'll take you, an hour to write all that stuff out, figure out what your subject line is, and then post it everywhere. You're going to reach about 5,000 people when you do that. Just so we're clear. Now, if your email list is disproportionate and you've got a ton of emails, you're going to reach more than 5,000 people. But overall, that LinkedIn channel is going to give you about 1,000 impressions. If you're not averaging that, you should work on it. The Facebook group is going to have, a few hundred, we'll call it. And then the email channel is really going to help you out.